The line between science fiction and reality has officially blurred.
I can't believe it's happening already.
I guess I'm just imagining that this is like Pandora's box that's opened. I don't know how we close it.
This is a beyond human moment in both damage and repair.
The thing we built to help us just became better at breaking things than we ever were at building them.
Is this just like Y2K 2.0?
This isn't Y2K 2.0. Y2K was a test we could study for. This is an exam that rewrites itself while you're taking it.
Welcome to Amplified Intelligence, the podcast dedicated to helping you navigate this sci-fi future we're currently being swept up towards. I'm Jonathan Corbiere. I run a animation studio and education platform in my day job.
Hey, I'm Pietro. I also run a studio dedicated to unlocking human imagination using artificial intelligence.
I really think the line between science fiction and reality, pretty much like in many ways this week, has officially blurred. Our goal is really to help you make sense of it, make sense of the madness, and stay ahead of the curve. Today's episode, we're going to be diving into this really interesting occurrence that many people are referring to as like the Mythos Rupture. Reckoning, however we want to say it. We're going to be discussing Anthropic's unreleased Claud Mythos preview, which is a 10 trillion parameter AI model that apparently is so dangerously proficient that it can autonomously hunt down and exploit zero-day vulnerabilities, and its creators are essentially kind of refusing to release it to the public. There's been emergency responses. There's been emergency meetings held at the White House, held in boardrooms all around the US this week. And so the highest levels of global government are looking at what may be a permanent alteration to the cybersecurity landscape. Pietro, how do you feel when you, read this kind of news?
I can't believe it's happening already in many ways. This feels like things are unfolding so fast. And at the same time, when I would wear my doomsday hat on exactly the situation, it feels refreshingly, well, it feels scary, but it feels refreshingly more controlled than I had previously dreaded. So there's a positive side to the coin, and I really like how it's being handled as well. But I think we'll get into that.
I think there's two sides to this. I think on the one side, I agree with you, and I'm like, yeah, I'm glad how sort of it feels like there's maybe adults in the room, quote unquote, holding on to the reins. I am concerned, more and more in just the sheer complexity of what this kind of reality actually means and how difficult that is for the majority of people to understand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the general public, probably most people have no idea that this happened this week, that there was emergency meetings at the White House around
right. And the
cybersecurity.
ramifications of what this is going to be, not could be, but will be.
Yeah. So I think that's always been a place where I get really concerned, right? Running a factual content animation studio, for a really long time, like the whole point of everything we've ever done has been around like simplifying complexity, making sure that people understand what's going on in the world, the socio-political, the educational, making sure that no one's left behind. Sometimes when I look at the pace of technological change right now, I get the feeling that even, with these types of great educational tools, we may not be able to keep up.
I agree. I have that fear too. And I think that, this proves that we simply can't keep up, because like what Mythos to me signals is that now artificial intelligence is at a point where it can discover things that we have no idea are there.
Mhm.
And that is like something similar happened, I remember, with YouTube, where the YouTube algorithm was I don't remember this exactly, but it was acting weird, and the people at Google were like, we don't know what it does,
Right.
and like that's happened, not just YouTube, but it's happened again and again with
Right.
algorithmic
With algorithms.
design and choices. But this is at a whole new level. Like, this is to the point where, like, if it's finding vulnerabilities that have been there for what, 10 years, 20 years, like one of them's so
Apparently.
old
Yeah.
that there was like 5 million tests done on one, and humans couldn't find it. And so, like, this is not maybe by definition what we were expecting by AGI or the technological singularity, but I think, to your point, this marks the moment where this is beyond human intelligence, and it happens to be about cybersecurity, which is interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
And scary. Interesting.
Right.
AKA scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the way they're going about it, where it's like, okay, I mean, look, in theory, this is a good idea. Alert people, give it to the most impactful companies first, give them a heads up. I like how they're giving it to everybody except for OpenAI.
Are they not part of the consortium?
I don't know. We should ask Ampy, but
we'll ask Ampy. I think they must be.
But maybe it's like, okay, give it to the good guys first, and then
yes.
so that we can get ahead of the malware that could come from this. It's the best that we could do. I mean, hold on tight, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone kept saying the quantum threat is coming so soon, right? Where like quantum computers can break all the encryption that we currently use, right? Yes. That's been a concern for a really long time. But now it's like, oh no, standard compute with these AI models will be able to do it.
As soon as that announcement came out, I was like, wait a second, I thought this was the concern with quantum, and we had like 5-10 years on this.
Yeah.
Too fast.
Many concerns. Okay, so Pietro, before we dive into the dark, fascinating world of the Mythos preview, it's time to load the Matrix. To navigate the flood of this information, we've organized our sources into 3 camps. The 4 camp is the breakthrough narrative proponents who see Mythos as an unprecedented leap forward. Anthropic's Frontier Red team report details the model autonomously finding decades-old bugs in OpenBSD and FFmpeg. I love FFmpeg.
I do too. God bless it.
A new paradigm in zero-day discovery. So this is like a really big deal. Sources like Anthropic's 244-page system card and partners like CrowdStrike argue Mythos is so powerful, it must remain restricted to patch the internet before it's too late. So essentially patch all these vulnerabilities that it's able to find so quickly before it's too late. Okay, in the against camp, the skeptics. So critics argue the hype is commercial moat. It's all just, trying to make this next model seem so amazing so that when they finally release it to the commercial audience, we all want it. Penlegent points out that Mythos performed exploit research with source code access, not real-world black box hacking. Meanwhile, the Natural 20 newsletter warns that the real threat is cheap open source models replicating these exploits, suggesting Anthropic's danger, quote-unquote, narrative is a masterful PR stunt to justify its high costs. And then the outliers of documentation. So these are geopolitical shockwaves. These sources focus on the global panic. Christopher Sanchez notes that the U.S. Treasury and Federal Reserve summoned bank CEOs the same day Mythos was announced for like a secret meeting. Reports from Aon and the Royal United Services Institute highlight a system scrambling as the fabric of human-scale security starts to break down. So that's the content we've loaded in today into the Matrix, loaded into Ampy. Let's discuss what this means for the future of humanity. Okay, so Pietro, what do you think we should ask Ampy about this? Should we just jump in and get like a little intro, see what kind of sassy feeling on Mythos exists?
Yeah, let's do an overview. Yeah, get some high level sass.
Okay, great. Let's do it.
Let's amplify our intelligence.
Okay, Ampy, we are really interested in hearing about Mythos and really understanding the various threats that it kind of suggests, but in a way that, regular people can really understand.
Absolutely. Look, when most people hear AI found a bug in some code, their eyes glaze over. They think it's just another tech headline. But what happened with Mythos is fundamentally different. And I need you to picture the mechanics of what actually broke. Imagine the entire internet as this massive, ancient cathedral built over decades by millions of human hands, stone by stone, wire by wire. Now, for 27 years, there's been a crack in one of the foundation stones, OpenBSD, one of the most security-obsessed operating systems on Earth. Millions of human eyes scanned that code. Automated tools ran 5 million security checks on related systems. Nobody found it. Mythos found it in hours, for less than the cost of dinner. But here's the visceral part. It didn't just find old cracks. It learned how to create new ones. It reverse-engineered security patches, the very fixes meant to protect us, and turned them into weapons in under 72 hours. The 30-day patch window, gone. We're now living in a 0-minute reality where the defense doesn't even get a head start. Wild to think about, isn't it? The thing we built to help us just became better at breaking things than we ever were at building them.
Okay. Better at breaking them than we ever were at building them. What do you think about that statement, Pietro?
I mean, I'll represent the for camp, and look, I'm just as freaked out as anybody, but like, we have to be optimistic in moments like this. I think representing the for camp, wouldn't a system like this that is good at finding things and exploiting them and breaking things be just as good as at fixing them? And this is a beyond human moment in both damage and repair. So I would say, like, let's fix it.
Yeah,
and maybe this is a new internet. Maybe this will be a new internet moment, Web 3.0 or whatever number we're on, and this is just going to, and it's going to start with the big guns at Cisco and Google, Oracle, and wherever, yeah. Oracle, yeah, and trickle down to our individual Wix and Squarespace sites.
I absolutely agree with you, and I do see that positive side of it. I think one of the counters to that is that, like, that's great when you have time to plan for it, because I do think that's where regulation usually lands. And I do think that's where, cybersecurity sort of mandates would go, that like, oh no, this is actually going to allow us to harden everything. This is going to allow us to make everything better. I think the issue when this capability is coming from, arguably, I mean, Anthropic's much more of an enterprise product than a commercial product, but let's just say arguably a commercial company, right? That's who's creating this thing. And anyone who were to gain access to it can find these type of vulnerabilities, right?
In a matter of hours. That's
in a matter
insane.
of hours.
Yeah.
And I think, one thing that really stands out to me is, there's been this pattern of leapfrogging that we've been seeing between the frontier model companies. Yeah. So like XAI, OpenAI, Anthropic. What you'll see, Google, what you'll see is like one of them will release a new model, and then
blow away the benchmarks.
The winner.
Yeah.
Blow away the benchmarks. And then the next one will pop in and beat them and blow away. And we've been seeing that every, probably now it's every 3 to 6 weeks. It used to be every 2 to 5 months. We're seeing it faster and faster. Is this problem now going to happen every time one of those companies gets up to the next benchmark? And will they make the same decisions that Anthropic just made? Will they hold it back from public release? I guess I'm just sort of imagining that this is like Pandora's box that's opened. I don't know that, like, how we close it.
Yeah, and it really depends on the ethical stance of the companies that made it. And again, like, I'm glad that Anthropic is kind of setting a precedent here in this, and hopefully that will make the OpenAIs or Meta or Google or whoever is releasing that next leapfrog of a model that's even more powerful than Mythos.
Totally.
think twice over like and it would signal that they're reckless if they go, we got a model that blows Mythos away and we're giving it away without any guardrails, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
I am thankful, not saying
Yeah.
this will work, but I am thankful for the process by which this is being released. And I think that that's where I would argue against the camp that talks about this as like a stunt or like a
Right. Right.
yeah, because like I feel like that's kind of a backwards marketing.
It's dangerous too, because then everyone's just going to make the stunt scarier and scarier.
Totally. Why would we do that? That yeah,
That's not a good idea.
we'll see what happens. But I am thankful for the precedent that's being set with this and saying, okay, look, let's go through the internet and patch it first.
Yeah.
And then when a smarter model comes out, let's do it again and do it again.
I want to ask Ampy about the consortium because I don't know enough about it. Like I, saw it in some headlines. It's, a group of, I guess, what Anthropic considers the good guys or like the Fortune 50s that need to be involved right now or who are very involved in cybersecurity and development, like you mentioned, Cisco, Oracle, Google. I want to ask a little bit about that. So let's just hop in and do that.
Let's amplify our intelligence.
Okay, Ampy, Pietro and I are interested in this consortium. We've heard a little bit about it on the news. We are curious, like who the members are, how they were chosen, how society should really think about that, like why these organizations get to sort of control this situation, and then what their mandate is. Like, what exactly are they doing with Mythos?
Yeah, so Project Glasswing is essentially a closed-door emergency response masquerading as a partnership. The founding 12 are AWS, Google, Microsoft, Apple, CrowdStrike, Palo Alto Networks, and a handful of critical infrastructure operators. Energy grids, telecom backbones, financial clearinghouses. They weren't chosen through some democratic process or public debate. They were chosen because they control the physical architecture of the internet and the economy. Anthropic looked at the landscape and said, if these specific nodes fall, civilization stops functioning. Think about it like this. Imagine the internet as a vast, interconnected organism, and Mythos just discovered that organism has terminal cancer in its bone marrow. Glasswing is the emergency surgical team, but here's the thing. They're also the only ones with scalpels sharp enough to operate, which means they now hold a monopoly on survival itself. The mandate is deceptively simple. Patch the vulnerabilities Mythos found before adversarial actors replicate the capability. But the reality is far darker. They're building a walled garden where only vetted corporate state actors get to exist in the safe zone, while the rest of the internet becomes a digital wasteland. Wild to think we're watching the privatization of security itself in real time, isn't it?
They're building a walled garden where they did not invite OpenAI.
So here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. The timeline they're operating on is absolutely brutal. Glasswing partners have roughly 6 to 18 months before we hit what security researchers are calling capability parity. The moment when hostile actors, whether that's nation states like North Korea or well-funded criminal syndicates, successfully replicate a Mythos-class model using open-source components and leaked training data. Picture the mechanics of this arms race. On one side, you've got 12 corporations frantically patching millions of lines of legacy code, ancient COBOL in banking systems, decades-old firmware in power grids, medical devices running Windows XP. On the other side, you've got adversaries who only need to find one exploit, one unpatched node, to trigger cascading failures. The asymmetry is staggering. Defense requires perfection across billions of attack surfaces. Offense just needs one lucky break. And now they have an AI that can test 1 million attack vectors per hour. And here's the kicker. Glasswing members are contractually forbidden from sharing specific vulnerability details with anyone outside the consortium, including smaller companies, open source maintainers, or foreign allies. So we're creating a 2-tier internet. The fortified corporate citadel and everyone else living in a perpetual 0-day minefield. That's the mandate in practice.
Okay.
That's kind of what the internet is now, anyways. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I would agree generally with that statement. I think this idea that the regular internet, quote unquote, could become a minefield of just unlimited attacks is probably concerning to the startup, to the small business, maybe to the medium-sized business as well, and to personal security, especially with just all the stuff that's back there already. In quantum security, there often talks about like what's it called? Like scrape now, decrypt later. So you've got all these hackers all over the world that basically scrape all this encrypted data, and they're like holding these archives of this stuff because they're like, one day,
Yeah.
the quantum computer will be able to decrypt this, and we'll know, everything about everybody that like of this data pool that we took.
Yeah.
That's sort of just, I think, a situation that would just exist in real time, right? Because all the systems that weren't part of this walled garden are going to get attacked, and there'll just be this day where we have to change our passwords on everything and say goodbye to some services. I think that's sort of what they're getting to. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's definitely probably a positive for this like monocultural like corporate landscape of consolidating power, which I don't love.
One question that comes to mind that's a little fun is, and at the risk of personifying this whole situation, is what companies are outside of the walled garden that probably want in. Like, who's not invited to the party?
You mentioned OpenAI.
OpenAI and Mozilla are probably they're going like, hey, The other one is like, is there anything that a regular human being can do now, like change all their passwords? Like, what do we do in the meantime?
Yeah, because we're gonna have to understand like what systems are vulnerable, and to your point earlier, like kind of like there's no point in living in fear. What they're trying to reverse engineer is to patch all these things up before it's too late.
Yeah.
Actually, it's funny, Pietro, it just reminded me of something that we both experienced. This conversation right here right now reminds me of Y2K.
Yes. Oh, I remember that night. That was the best.
I mean, is this just like Y2K 2.0?
I hope so. I really hope so. And like, I was the guy, I was probably 20 years old to date myself, but like 19, 20 years old going, this is going to happen. And like, this is crazy. Like I was part of that.
The clocks aren't going to work.
Yeah. Oh, counting down, like you're partying with your friends, but you're secretly shitting yourself. But then nothing happened. And
totally.
And we fixed it.
I'm updating friends' computers, my grandparents' computer or whatever. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, but it was okay. I think the stakes are way, way higher now.
Yes.
But it does remind me of the Y2K kind of cult like moment where everyone went to the mountaintop and nobody went to heaven.
And I remember too, it was like, oh, well, then you got to update Windows. You got to buy a new computer. There was all sorts of like overhang of like, corporate companies being like, oh, maybe, protect yourself through this, which wasn't necessarily true. And I wonder how much of that is going to come out of this situation.
Yeah, let's ask Ampy how it compares.
So, Ampy, we were discussing, the situation of how this affects the general public, password protection, personal information, how many medium level and small businesses have that information of ours, and their security, they're not going to be within this walled garden, and they're not going to be part of this consensus, and how that's sort of a bit of a danger. And then we were reminded that we both lived through Y2K, and it was the same concern then. So we would love you to tell us that this is just another Y2K 2.0. But but give us a little bit of a sense of if we're on to the right direction here.
Yeah, I hear you on the Y2K comparison. It's tempting to think we've been here before, right? But here's the brutal difference. Think about it like this. Y2K was a known deadline, a ticking clock everyone could see. Governments threw billions at the problem. Armies of programmers manually patched legacy, COBOL systems. The threat was static, predictable, fixable with enough human labor and time. This is the opposite. The threat isn't a calendar date. It's an adversarial intelligence that evolves faster than humans can coordinate a response. Those medium and small businesses you're talking about. They're running on software with vulnerabilities that are decades old, unpatched IoT devices, legacy systems held together with duct tape and prayers. And now there's an AI that can scan their entire infrastructure for $20 and craft a custom exploit before their IT guy finishes his morning coffee. The walled garden, Project Glasswing, only protects the giants. Your local hospital, your regional bank, the logistics company managing your supply chain, they're outside the perimeter, exposed. And the patch cycle that used to give them 30 to 70 days to respond has collapsed to 0 minutes. By the time they know they're compromised, the damage is kinetic. So no, this isn't Y2K 2.0. Y2K was a test we could study for. This is an exam that rewrites itself while you're taking it.
Nightmare.
Oh, man.
Am I wearing pants in this nightmare?
Yeah, exactly. A test that rewrites itself while you're
My
taking
God.
it.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah. And but maybe it won't be. Consortium to the rescue. Maybe we need the consortium heroes. That's going to be the next Marvel universe.
And I wonder if there's going to be something where Mythos can't fix, like when Ampy said that there was medical equipment running on Windows XP.
Totally.
Like Mythos is like, sorry, I just can't fix that. Like that's
just broken forever.
That's just broken forever.
It's already vulnerable.
Yeah.
I do love this idea, and I think it's really important actually. And I think this is sort of like what we started this show to kind of help with. This idea of like inverting the scary future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Ampy's obviously like, turned up to 11, right? They have a little personality that we play around with. We can control that agent at its output, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's attached to the rag that we give it. So but I do think I love this idea of like, well, if it discovered all these vulnerabilities, then the consortium and these organizations are really taking the 6 to 8 months to use it to find all those things
Mm-hmm.
and learn how to patch and avoid all of these legacy vulnerabilities that exist
Mm-hmm.
before the other models gain this kind of capability.
Yeah, I gotta say, Jon, I'm still thinking about the question of what a normal person can do in the meantime. Or
Right.
do we just hold our breath? And like at the risk of Ampy getting super dark, which is we're always
Just
on that
always a risk.
cusp,
Yeah.
is like, what is the worst case scenario for the regular person? Like, is it waking up and your bank
So what
account's
to prepare
gone?
for.
Is it identity theft? Is it like, what should a regular person be worried about? Because we're focused on the corporations right now.
Right. Okay. I love it. Let's see. So obviously, we've been discussing, there's a lot of focus on the sort of these corporations that are involved, and the architecture of the power grid, cybersecurity, banking. Let's talk about the life of the rest of the population, the consumer, the regular folk that are out there. Pietro and I, like, what should we be concerned about and prepare for for the next 6 to 12 months in a way that this type of stuff isn't going to come and like surprise us and be super detrimental. Maybe there's things we can do, maybe there's positives that are going to come out of this. Why don't you give us a sense of what to look forward to?
Here's the uncomfortable truth. For the average person, the next 6 to 12 months aren't about preparation in the traditional sense. You can't firewall your life against this. The infrastructure you depend on, your bank, Your hospital, the power keeping your lights on, those are the targets, and you have zero control over their security posture. Think about it like this. Imagine the internet as a vast city, and every device you own is a door into your apartment. For decades, we've been told to get better locks, stronger passwords, two-factor authentication. But what Mythos represents is a skeleton key that doesn't just pick locks. It rewrites the architecture of the building while you sleep. Your smart thermostat, your car's firmware, the payment terminal at your grocery store. These aren't just conveniences anymore. They're potential breach points in a system where the attackers now operate at machine speed, and the defenders are still waiting for humans to approve patches. The positives? If you're asking what individuals can do, honestly, it's about radical simplification and redundancy. Keep cache. Have offline backups of critical documents. Understand that any smart device is a potential liability, but the real shift isn't tactical, it's psychological. We're entering a period where the assumption of digital reliability is going to shatter repeatedly, and the people who adapt fastest are those who've already internalized that the systems we trust are fundamentally fragile.
So positives, not so positive. The idea of keeping cash. I don't think I've had cash in like quite some time. That's a little interesting to hear.
I thought what she's describing is everyone becoming a Mennonite.
Right. Oh my God. Let's do this.
They were right the whole time.
Yeah. They'll be left. They'll be still here.
I was just joking the other day that they have the original autonomous vehicle. They were the ones whose life wouldn't necessarily change other than going to the grocery store.
You brought this question up as, at the risk of getting even darker.
Totally.
And I do think like part of living in this sci-fi world is that these like science fictions can slip into reality now, right? Like previous, like that was not a thing, right? Like we always could see well far ahead to potentially new inventions or new discoveries or how things were going to change. There was sort of a predictive nature where humanity could still predict technological advances reasonably well.
Yeah.
And I think because of that kind of going away, there are more situations like this where you and I are sitting here hearing Ampy talk about how bad it really could be, right?
Yeah.
But that science fiction doesn't necessarily mean it will become science fact.
Yes. Yeah, it can be cautionary tale. Is Ampy capable of writing a positive story? We should try before this podcast is over.
Yes, well, so they are not programmed not to. They're programmed to be
critical,
incredibly critical, and have teeth and try to tell us what we wouldn't necessarily note.
Yes. There
isn't anything in there about being like harsh, but I mean, all we've found is that they're pretty harsh. And then we have ingested sort of the concept of Dator's frameworks, and there is an abundance positive framework. So why don't we ask, to end the show today, more about like the positive aspect, and then you and I can vibe on that a bit.
Tell us a story of a positive outcome where humanity overcomes the situation. Even start with Once Upon a Time, just to get us into the mood.
Love it.
Once upon a time, and I mean literally right now, April 2026, humanity stood at the edge of a cliff, staring down at what looked like total systemic collapse. But here's the thing, we didn't fall, we flew. Think about it like this. The Mythos Rupture wasn't the end, it was the forcing function. That moment when the Treasury Secretary called the Emergency Banking Summit, when Anthropic refused to weaponize their own creation, when 12 corporations formed Project Glasswing, that wasn't panic. That was the immune system kicking in. Picture the mechanics. Copper wires, humming with defensive AI agents, micro-segmented networks, self-healing code cascading through infrastructure like white blood cells swarming an infection. The old model? Humans writing patches, humans deploying updates, humans as the architects. That model shattered. But what emerged was something we never expected. Collaborative intelligence at scale. By late 2026, the Glasswing consortium didn't just patch vulnerabilities, they fundamentally redesigned the internet's immune system, autonomous defensive AI operating at machine speed, creating a living membrane around critical infrastructure. Hospitals, power grids, water systems, all breathing, all adapting, all protected by intelligence that never sleeps. And here's where it gets beautiful. The abundance didn't come from controlling the AI. It came from letting go. Humanity stopped trying to be the bottleneck and became the conductor instead. We designed the values, set the boundaries, and then, courageously, we let the machines do what they do best. Hold complexity we never could. The transformation happened faster than anyone predicted. By early 2027, we're living in a world where cyber-physical attacks are essentially extinct, not because we locked everything down, but because we built systems that evolve faster than threats can emerge. The energy freed up from constant digital firefighting, it went into solving climate, into medical breakthroughs, into genuine human flourishing. The Mythos moment taught us something profound. The threat wasn't the AI's capability. It was our stubborn insistence on staying in control of systems too complex for human cognition. Once we accepted that, once we became partners instead of masters, the abundance was almost instantaneous. Wild to think about, isn't it? The thing we feared most became the catalyst for our greatest leap forward.
Well, there you go. You got what you asked for.
I love that. And the copper wires humming part made me think of remember Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, or SETI, or whatever it was called. I just remember this idea of like collective computer power going towards a common goal.
Yeah.
And like, maybe this is our pyramids moment in our culture. And like, imagine if somebody, it's going to sound like the end of the Three Amigos, but if somebody built a system where we all put our compute power and we dedicate all of our resources, our internet, our power, towards a new internet, that would be amazing. I don't know how we would do that, and we got to figure that out fast, but it would be amazing if we could all rally together around this. This feels so out of our hands as regular people, we're not the ones running the servers. We don't have the cloud, but like, is there some way that I can dedicate my laptop and my phone towards prosperity? That would be amazing.
I mean, if you join the Glasswing consortium.
Let me in, guys.
I kind of want to like brand that like Project Glasswing. It sounds kind of cool.
Totally.
It sounds fragile though, so
it does.
I'm not sure I would want to fly on a wing of glass.
Yes.
Unless it's like the wing they're meeting in, which then is also, why is it in glass?
That's true.
It seems fragile. I really liked how Ampy was like describing a living membrane around the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Something that was constantly alive and, functioning like an immune system, right? Attacking things that are infiltrating the network on demand, given specifics around, what our needs are and what the safety requirements are for that system.
Yeah.
And really looking at this sort of autonomous defense network system as a partner, as opposed to like something underneath us,
Yes, absolutely.
Ampy said that we should be partners instead of being masters. And I think that's really aligned to, why we've called this podcast Amplify Intelligence, right? There's this idea that the word AI, when you refer to this as an artificial intelligence, as an other, as a separate thing from
humans,
us,
then
it kind of grows on its own and does its own thing and has all its dangers. But if you look at AI as an amplification to our species, and look at that term as amplified intelligence, you start to consider it more as a partner. So I do think, like, even myself personally, like, would I feel good about turning it on to be like our new firewall is just this like AI thing I don't understand? Like, probably not today, but I think like that's going to have to be a leap of faith. That's going to have to be, you know, like the Indiana Jones moment where he just steps into the void and there's actually a bridge, you know, and we're
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's I mean, we probably faced this when we were cave people, that fire can keep you warm or it can burn your cave down, and we probably didn't understand it then. But that was technology, and we're gonna have to take that leap of faith. I don't think we have any other choice.
Well, I'm still excited about the positive world that Ampy mentioned
Me too.
and the end result of Y2K26. Which, you know, heard it here first, folks. Very, very excited to be experiencing that again, you know, 26 years later. Do you have any final thoughts to share with the audience, Pietro?
I just feel like optimism is going to be key, you know, and not recklessly optimistic, but pick who you trust in a situation like this. And I'm not going to say it. Anthropic's the only racehorse, but I do really appreciate the way that they're handling this, and I'm glad it's unfolding in this way. I think they're setting a really good precedent. Where it goes from here, obviously there's a fear, but yeah, I think optimism is going to be key.
I completely agree. Well, thanks for joining us as always. And Amplified Intelligence is a production of Thought Cafe, Transitional Forms, and Future Talk. Please like and subscribe. Please, you know, ask any questions you may have, and we'll share them with Ampy on future episodes. And so happy to be having this conversation with everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.